Hello everybody and welcome to the next session, IoT Business Transformation and Implementation. My name is Tobias Adam, and before we start I would like to introduce myself so that you have an idea about who actually is talking to you right now. So I'm one of the founders and also managing directors of Magnify Innovation, and well, the name of the company gives it away. We are all about innovation, and innovation for us means enabling individuals and organizations to be more creative, to foster creativity in order to solve all these various business challenges that we are all facing day in, day out. And what you need to know about myself is that for 13 years, I'm working in the field of innovation management. For 13 years, I'm trying to figure out how can I use various methodologies and tools to enable individuals and organizations to be more creative, to find novel ways to solve problems. And I also have a background in IT, so naturally I try to find ways to combine these elements from the innovation management side with IT aspects and challenges. And you will see later on that actually this makes perfect sense. And my goal for today is that based on these insights that I would like to share with you, our experiences that I present, that you later on have a better understanding of how to address these tasks when somebody approaches you and says, please come up with a concept for IoT business transformation or digitalization. So having said that, let's dive right in. So like I said, today we are talking about IoT business transformation and implementation. Um, Naturally, here in Germany, people think that it's quite easy. You just use several sensors, various technologies, a little bit of cloud functionality, and voila, there you go, you have your IoT platform. Um, Hopefully in 30 minutes from now on, you have a slightly different understanding. Before we move on, for your orientation, probably you are familiar with the Referenzarchitekturmodell Industrie 4.0 provided by the German government. The idea of this model is to provide some guidance and structuring the whole topic, Industry 4.0. And as you can see, there are several layers. I don't want to go into details. Just one thing is very important for today's presentation. I only focus on the business level. Um, Nothing about technology, only that layer that actually drives later on your revenue. How do you structure or come up with a business model that actually takes advantage of everything that is going on beneath that business layer? And also as a motivational slide, still there are people out there who don't see the need to talk about IoT-based business models. They think they have a successful product today, so they don't need this platform-based approach. Well, in 2008, when you look on the right-hand side of that slide, the 10 most valuable companies mostly came from established industries like these old-fashioned industries, telecommunication, oil and gas, industry player like GE. In 2018, only 10 years later, that picture has changed. 7 out of 10 companies are based on platform-based business models. So this is just a warning or a hint that probably, even though you have an amazing product today, that might not be enough to secure the future of your company. And there's something else I would like to point out. when we talk about digital transformation, for us, this is not about technology. For us, this is about strategies. It is about new ways of thinking. And this is very important. Otherwise, there's a slight risk that you end up doing what you did yesterday or what you are doing today, tomorrow just in a more shiny, high-tech version, but you never really change the underlying logic. And that might be very disappointing in the end, because then the cost-benefit ratio is not really convincing. You probably saw this slide before. I borrowed this from Oliver Niedung, one of the IoT experts here with Microsoft Germany. And this slide describes 4 different stages in that digital transformation journey. So we start with business insights, with collecting data, processing that data, having more storage capacities, and we use that to increase our understanding of our products and how our services actually generate value for the customer. So the next level, operational efficiencies, then we use this information and combine it with other elements so that we can reduce costs, optimize time to market, or also implement some kind of predictive maintenance system. The next level, new business models. Provisioning of services that accompany our products or hardware. We deliver a certain device or service as a service. And of course, then last but not least, we also enable new business models, new transformed businesses in order to generate new revenue streams. We combine that approach with what we said before. Digital transformation requires new ways of thinking. So, and that led to the Magnify Digitalization Maturity Framework. What we would like to point out with that framework is that if you move forward and you move from business insights to operational efficiencies, new business models, and new revenue streams, it only makes sense, or you increase the benefit from one level to the other, the more new ways of thinking are incorporated in that new approach. That is the idea. Otherwise, without new ways of thinking, without new strategies, you risk ending up with basically the same business model and value proposition that you had yesterday. It's just a high-tech version of that. And that's probably not actually your goal. And what we also need to point out at this point of time, the role of IT and the tools that we use in order to move forward from one level to the other, they change. So starting on the lower level, business insights and operational efficiencies, that's basically for me the home turf of IT. I mean, that's what we've been doing over decades now. We secure the current business model and try to make it risk-free and cost-optimized. And we usually refer to tools like various optimization frameworks and also the digital feedback loop. I will talk about that later on again. So once we move forward, addressing new business models, trying to come up with new benefits and revenue streams, the role of IT actually is changing, because now we are a business partner for the organization. We, as IT department, are an incubator for innovation, and we are the ones enabling new business models. When you think about that kind of role, then it becomes quite obvious that you need different tools in order to really live up to the expectations related to that role. So we recommend a playbook for digital transformation. We recommend tools from the systematic innovation ecosystem, and also the next level digital feedback loop. I will introduce these concepts in more detail later on, just to give you some frameworks, some orientation, what I'm actually talking about. So let's go back to that slide. And to point out why the tools that you're working with are so important. So when you're talking about business insights, so remember, we are talking only about the business level of the reference architecture model. So the green layer on top, that's what we are talking about. So you might use old-fashioned value chain proposed by Michael Porter, or you take the business model canvas by Osterman. So of course, these tools help you to understand what is going on today, and they are a solid basis for developing business insights. So moving to the next level, we can still use these kind of tools. So operational efficiencies, actually, we didn't touch the business model. So yes, we can still work with business model canvas. Your value chain representation, I try to point out, okay, we have now operational efficiency, so it's a little bit slimmer, it's more efficient. And now something we need to consider, moving on to the next level. And keep in mind, IoT transformation, that was the headline of my presentation. So not every technological platform is a platform business. It's very important to understand that these are two very different things. Otherwise, you end up moving forward and still using these tools that you used before. The problem? These tools won't enable you to really capture the essence of an IoT-based business model. So we would like to suggest that you take other tools into consideration. I will explain these tools 2-3 slides from now. So, and you see that now that we moved on that path from business insights, operational efficiencies, new business models, something has changed. And that is very important because the nature of IoT-based or platform-based business models is different. So we need different tools to capture this essence. And at this point also I would like to offer a definition for platform business. I know it's very generic, but for me platform business is generating value through interactions between different entities. And I kept it generic for a purpose. Because now, with this kind of definition, you have room to maneuver. There are different alternatives, different options that still fall under this definition. And talking about platform, to give you an understanding what actually makes a platform, we tried this once a couple of weeks ago during a business breakfast. And I asked people, could you please explain to me how Facebook works? And they said, well, it's easy. They make revenue with advertising. I said, okay, so we have Facebook here in the middle, and it's all about advertising. So here we have the advertiser, so they pay. That's it, right? You just said it's about advertising. I said, no, we need to have the consumer, the ones actually sharing their content on the platform. I said, okay, we have users. So they share content, it's social interaction, and they receive also something like tools and apps from the platform. So is that the complete picture? And people said, well, yeah, more or less. And I respectfully disagree, because this is just part of what Facebook is all about. In order for Facebook to be a very important platform, they need to offer more. The social interaction provided by the users is already great, but Facebook also offers different apps. So Facebook is paying app developers to provide apps. These apps make it more attractive for the users to stay on Facebook. And there are also publishers. They use Facebook to distribute their content. And this additional content also increases what they call here the stickiness. It's the way that Facebook just, you can't get out of that network. It's so attractive to be there. Your friends, your family, they all share their content. They are publishers, very interesting content. For example, I like the content that NASA shares on Facebook. It's very interesting for me. So this is a network that provides value through various types of interaction. And important is that the user here on top actually is not paying. All the revenue comes from the advertisers here on the right-hand side. So this is a nice example to point out that points out how different the business logic is on a platform. So how do we get there? I mean, this is now the question that quite a lot of companies face these days. So what needs to be done? So we recommend, first of all, you need task and content specific toolboxes. And you need a process. Otherwise, you end up doing things without a clear structure. You don't actually know when, what needs to be done. Things like that should be clear. So what kind of toolboxes do we recommend? We at Magnify Innovation, over time, we developed 3 different toolboxes. And all in all, within these toolboxes, it's roughly 80 different tools that we combine to get the job done. So first toolbox, systematic innovation. This toolbox contains several methodologies and tools that enable us to foster creativity and enable teams to come up with new ideas and new concepts. The Playbook for Digital Transformation provides guidance in regards of how to structure the digital journey of a company. What are key areas that need to be addressed? This book also contains some different tools that are tailor-made for these different strategic dimensions that we would like to address. And last but not least, one toolbox focusing on IoT platforms, ecosystems, and business models. Like I said, all in all, around about 80 different tools that we combine based on customer situation and goal that we would like to achieve. And to give you an idea about specifically the toolbox for systematic innovation, because when it comes to systematic innovation these days, most people immediately think design thinking. Well, yes, as you can see on the lower part of that model, design thinking is also part of our toolbox. But the message I try to bring across here is don't limit yourself to just one tool. There are various tools out there, great methodologies. Try to figure out what works best for you. And I usually try to explain it that way. It's like when you ask a maintenance guy to fix your AC at home, and this guy just arrives, and the only thing he brings with him is a hammer, you might doubt that he actually knows what he's supposed to do. And the same kind of understanding led to this toolbox. Different situations, different challenges, we require different tools. And also keep in mind, it's about getting a job done. And the customer actually doesn't care which tool you use or which methodology, as long as the outcome is according to the expectations. The process description the process that we follow through, of course, on this level is very generic, I know. There's much more to this, but then I need another hour to describe the process in detail. So basically it's 4 steps: systematically and provocatively challenge the status quo. I will show some examples later on. This leads to novel impulses, which we can then turn into new concepts with unrivaled value. And we should not forget to validate underlying assumptions and hypotheses. And once we've done that, we can implement and scale up. Again, I know, very generic, but this is, then you covered most of the important aspects of the design of such a platform. And time frame. Some of you might be surprised. We are only talking about weeks. It's not like back in the days when a good IT project was years in the making. Well, no, these days we talk about a couple of weeks. Of course, sometimes it might be a little bit longer than what I present here due to the complexity that some concepts generate. But as a rule of thumb, after here 17 to 18 weeks, you can already show first results to your management board. What also might be of interest, probably you saw this slide before, the digital feedback loop that Microsoft presents and also uses to explain. Once you have these different dimensions, customers, operations, products, and employees, every dimension generates data that you can then feed into that loop. And the more data you collect, the more insight you generate. And these insights lead to new offerings and new business models. I like this approach. We would like to take it a step further. We actually suggest that you should use this digital feedback loop in combination with our toolbox for systematic innovation, with the playbook for digital transformation and the elements for generating IoT platforms. And the advantage of the next level digital feedback loop is that we can now also have creative elements incorporated in what logical and analytical thinking approaches generate. Logic and analytic, surprisingly, quite often is limited when you look at the outcomes. So we like to add the creative elements to that approach. And the whole idea of an IoT platform, I talked about that before. It's new ways of thinking, it's new strategies. And I talked about why the business model canvas might not be the right tool. And here, just an example, that is the business model platform canvas. And you already see it contains different elements, not like it used to be, like there's this value proposition in the middle, and then on the right-hand side you have your customers, and that's it. No, here we talk about different aspects that actually make a platform a platform. You have the platform owner. There are enabling services, empowering services, and all this needs to fit nicely together so that we can have the transactions that I talked about earlier that generate value. And you need to understand how all these different entities work and play together. And once you design that system, that concept, so how to move forward, that's one of the most important questions. Designing that kind of platform is one thing, and then the question is, okay, how do I move forward? How do I turn this into reality? And when it comes to the implementation stage, we recommend to apply some kind of lean startup logic, something we know from the agile world. So in your concept, there are underlying assumptions. So what are these assumptions? How can you validate those assumptions? And how can we test them? Which criteria should be met? And how do we, decide whether a test was successful or not? So you need that kind of thinking. And here's another canvas model that tries to provide some guidance in this regard. So you really write down every key assumption, and you try to figure out how is a minimal viable platform approach, feasible to really test your assumptions. And the reason why you want to do that, you want to make sure that your platform actually works in the way it's intended to work. And you want to make sure that everything works fine, because you need to stimulate network effects. That is the whole idea of a platform. It's not just this one producer and has, I don't know, n customers. So we want to have this nice exponential growth that makes platforms so powerful. And to give you an idea of what I mean, so here we have customers. These are the ones that actually come to your platform to buy or exchange something. You have producers, service providers, and partners. And in the beginning, this is also usually one of the first questions that comes up. So where do I start? Do I try to attract customers first and then producers? Well, it's a chicken egg problem, I admit. Our recommendation: focus on producers, partners, and services first, because otherwise there's no intention or no benefit whatsoever for a customer to join that platform. If there's nothing they can get, they probably walk away. So focus on providing something that is attractive to the customers. Just a couple of producers so that there's something there that attracts customers. Then moving on to the next phase, you attract customers, the platform is growing, you have more interactions, so then it's time to start talking to additional producers, trying to find more partners and service providers, so that over time the platform is growing and attracts more customers. The more customers you attract, of course, the more producers and service providers and partners you can try to get to participate on that platform. So this is actually the idea, that over time the whole platform, the number of entities that interact on the platform is growing. And these numbers are used to make this graph. These are just examples, so don't expect that the numbers are developed nicely in this diamond kind of shape. So that's just an example. I mentioned earlier that you should start with challenging the status quo in order to start this whole journey and move forward. The reason why we say that, back in 1850, probably that was a common picture. Somewhere close to a factory there was a mill or a steam engine, because you needed that kind of source for driving your machinery inside the factory. So then we introduced the electric motor. And what happened was quite interesting. You would assume, great, so now finally we can let go of the primary shaft and we can have all kinds of factory layouts and designs that are different, that are more focused on optimizing processes and things like that. Well, no, not at all. In the beginning, nothing really changed. This new technology was used to rebuild the primary shaft, the one that people were familiar with, based on steam engine and water engine. So we call that functional fixedness. And that's something we see these days quite often when people talk about IoT business models, platform-based business models. Because remember when I talked about earlier this confusion, what is a technical platform and what is a platform-based business? That's related to functional fixedness. We struggle to let go of existing business logic and processes. So we recommend, systematic provocation. And when you look at these examples here, remember, it's about challenging the status quo. We don't own buses anymore. We don't own cabs anymore. Imagine you let apartments or rooms you don't own. You already know which companies I'm talking about. So nowadays, this is common knowledge. 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago, this was radical. And people would have said, well, I don't know what you had this morning. I would like to have something of that too, because you are crazy. But this is important. Challenge what you think this is your business today. In order to really conquer new grounds, you have to systematically challenge what you have today. The outcome of this approach, this will inspire you to develop new business models that are based on new value chains and novel value propositions. And for me, very important, then you are able to develop individual concepts that are as individual as your own organization. So you have really something that differentiates you from competitors. And this approach, it's structured, is systematic, it's creative. This will reduce your risk and also optimize your ROI. And looking at the time, I'm more or less within my time limit, so let me sum up. Platform beats product. You have a successful product today. Great, I'm happy for you, but think about the future. What comes after that product? How could a platform look like that takes advantage of that product and provides new revenue streams? Please keep in mind that not every technological platform is a platform business. Very important. Platform business models follow a different business logic. It's more this focus on interaction and sharing data, for example. So ask yourself, what kind of interaction should take place? What kind of different data sources could work together on your platform in order to create a novel value proposition? For the concept development, choose the right combination of tools. Not only tools that foster logical and analytical thinking, but also creativity as well. And start the implementation with MVP-like approach and mindset. Start small. Think about what are underlying assumptions that you would like to test, functionality that you thought is crucial. Make sure the customer has the same understanding of what creates value. And last but not least, systematically challenge the status quo. Thank you for listening. I hope I was able to get you excited about IoT platform development. If you have any further questions, please don't hesitate to reach out via email. You find me on LinkedIn or now in the chat function. And I'm looking forward to answer all your questions. Thank you.